Hey, this is Mrs. Smeckens. All right, so we've been working on the fact that readers ask questions of the text they're reading. Well, we talked about the questions you should ask before you even start reading. We called those pre-reading or preview questions. In the last lesson, we then talked about that once you actually start reading, you should also add new questions to your thinking. You should continue to wonder as you read, collecting information and having questions about those new details. We also talked about that as you're reading, you want to remember both of these types of questions because remember, we're looking for answers, right? We're trying to make sense of what we read. So we're collecting details, we're generating questions, but we're also thinking about the details to answer the questions that we were generating. So we read on and keep this process going. Okay, well, I want to introduce you to the third type of question in this lesson, the third way that your thinking voice might whisper a question to you. And it happens when you're collecting, questioning, putting together, and answering, and it happens not when you read on and, yep, that's what I thought. This idea that you're reading the details, you're putting them together, and the next detail you pick up answers a question, and yep, that's what you expected. It confirms what you expected. Maybe you made a prediction, and as you're reading, you're like, yep, that's what I thought. A lot of times it's not a prediction, though. You're reading, you generate a question, a wondering, and as you read on, you learn the answer, and you say, yep, that's reasonable. You confirm, makes sense. Yep, I can see that. Nothing surprised you about it. You got the answer to your question and you keep going. All right. The problem is that there are times that as you read on, you pick up a detail, you get an answer, you notice something, and you're like, what? You're confused. That's what this lesson is about. It's about the times your thinking voice whispers to you in the form of a confusion. It's lost. It didn't expect that. Wait, what? What's going on? What's happening? I didn't expect that. What does this mean? Now, I know there are times that you ask questions of confusion of your teacher. And a lot of times you're just reading and you're looking and then you come to something you don't know and you say, what's that mean? What's that? I don't get that part. Okay, well, wait. You got to learn how to deal with it. This is a normal reader problem. That's the first thing I want you to know about questions of confusion is they're normal. It's normal not to always get what you read. But it's not normal to ask your teacher for the rest of your life, what does that mean? You got to be able to figure it out. That's what this lesson is about. Recognizing when you're confused, when you're lost, when you don't get it, and knowing how to persevere and fix it, solve it. All right. And let's be clear, although it is normal, I'm not talking about distracting voice. It's not that you come across a detail and you're like, what? And what's for lunch? And it's not that you were thinking about other things. Oh, no, you were leaning in. You were thinking about this text. You were collecting details. You were answering questions. You were asking more questions. But then you come across a detail and you're like, what? Huh? Where did that come from? I totally didn't expect that. Huh? And it confuses you. Okay, so it's not a distraction. It's a different type of problem. And it still requires rereading. We're going to have to deal with it. But I'm not talking about a distraction. I'm talking about you're engaged, you're paying attention, you just don't get it. All right, so you're confused. All right, so how do we deal with this? What do we do about this? Okay, well, let me first say that if you aren't paying attention to your thinking voice at all, you don't even notice it. If you're reading and you're asking questions, you're reading and you're getting answers, confirming, yep, that makes sense. That's reasonable. Yep, okay, I get it. I was thinking something similar, reading and asking more questions, reading and getting answers. But if you're not aware, thinking about your thinking, some people call it self-monitoring. If you're not paying attention to your thinking, then you aren't going to be able to deal with the confusion. So the first thing is you have to not only be thinking, but be aware of your thinking. Pay attention to what you're thinking so that when your thinking voice whispers, huh? We don't get it. What's going on? We're lost. What does that mean? When did that happen? Huh? That it can back up and help you adjust. That's what's going to happen, is that when we cannot confirm our thinking, the answer doesn't fit with what we were expecting, then we're going to have to learn how to adjust. Okay, I'll teach you how to adjust, but let's not do that yet. Let's first talk about how in the world does this happen? Mrs. Meckins, if I'm reading and I'm thinking, shouldn't I always get it? No. And I'll tell you why. It's because of your schema. Okay? It's a big fancy word. It's your background, okay? It's a special element of your background knowledge. Okay, so when you're reading and you're picking up details, the author cannot tell you everything about whatever this subject matter is in one sentence at the same time. You have to read multiple sentences, and throughout those sentences, you get a better understanding, a clearer picture in your mind. Okay, but in the meantime, after you've read just one or two details in the first sentence, your schema starts to fill in the gaps. And every once in a while, as you keep reading, you'll pick up a detail that doesn't match what your schema had been picturing, what your schema was thinking, the gaps your schema filled in. Let me show you maybe in another way how this works. Have you ever seen that line art where it's like draw a line and then you have to make something out of the line, like you have to see a bigger picture in the line? Okay, so I draw this line, okay? And so now I have to see something. And or if I'm the author, I drew this line and you have to finish it. What do you see? And it's your schema is going to fill it in for you, okay? Your background knowledge. You see something in this line, okay? And let's pretend that you see a bug, okay? A bug, centipede, whatever that is, okay? But now wait a minute. What if, as you keep reading or you watch me finish drawing this line, when I'm done, it looks like this? And you're like, well, that's not what I saw. I know. That's because of your schema. You got the first detail, the first part of the line, and you filled in the rest. Totally normal. It is normal for a reader to be confused, not distracted, just confused. And that's because their schema filled in after a couple details. What happens, though, is that eventually you're going to come across a detail and your thinking voice is going to say, whoa, that doesn't fit. That's not what we saw. I didn't see a centipede. I was supposed to see a man with a bumpy face. Whoa, where'd that come from? And it shocks you. That's how it works. And that's why it's normal, because authors can't give you everything. So when you preview, generate questions, you wonder more questions while reading, and then you start to read, it's normal to every once in a while read on and be confused. Okay, so how are we going to deal with this? That's when you have to know how to adjust. Okay, so now let's look more closely at the concept of adjusting. Kind of like preview had two parts. First, you had to steal information with your reading voice, text feature information, and then you had to think about it to produce questions. Adjust needs two steps as well. Okay, so the first thing you have to do to adjust is you have to recognize, whoa, we were wrong. What we were thinking, what we filled in with our schema, not right. Whether it was a prediction or an anticipated answer or an anticipated fact, whatever it is, it caught you. Whoa, I was not on track. Okay, so you have to recognize it. That's the first step. Recognize it. Okay, recognize you're wrong. Then the next thing you have to do after just recognizing you're wrong is then adjust. And let's look closely at that adjust symbol. It also has a couple steps to it. Okay, first notice that we have that circle with the arrow, okay? Because the first thing you have to do is reread. I know it's a dirty word. You don't like it? I know. And I don't mean reread the whole thing. Just go back a sentence or two, because it was just in the last couple sentences that, whoa, that caught you. You didn't expect it. So just go back a sentence or two. You got to back up, because you got to figure out what details you missed before the whoa detail hit you in the face. You got to figure out what you missed. You guys, you cannot keep going. Okay, let's have a sports analogy here. Let's say you have a play. You're on offense, soccer, football, whatever it is, all right? And you're on offense, all right? And the play is supposed to be, you're supposed to cut here and do this, all right? But en route, a defender's there. You can't keep going. You have to adjust. It's normal that you're expecting this and then have to pivot, have to adjust. So first, you've got to kind of read the situation, or in our case, reread the situation. Go back up and see what you missed, because it's in what you missed in that last couple sentences, perhaps, that's going to help you get back on track and get the check mark. Oh, I get it. Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, okay. All right. It's normal for our schemas to fill things in. We get a little detail and we think we know where it's going. Get a little more detail. Yep, that's what I thought. Confirm. Get a little more detail. Totally making sense. Getting it. Get a little more detail. What? Whoa. You got to adjust. Normal problem. Got to deal with it. Okay, so let me show you this in action, okay? So I'm just going to go sentence by sentence, because that's how it happens. It's sentence by sentence, all right? When you're really engaged, you don't have to reread much to figure out where you lost it. Okay, so here I go. I'm going to read. Imagine 3 females playing hopscotch. Okay, I see 3 females. I see girls in shorts and flip-flops, pigtails. I see 3 of them. Got it. Okay, now 2 are waiting their turn while 1 tosses the rock and hops. Okay, I see it. I see one of those young girls tossing the rock. I see the other 2 girls just kind of standing off to the side, and they're just waiting their turn. Got it. Okay, then I read. It was a unique sight to see such mature women playing this simple schoolyard game. Whoa, mature. I was picturing like 9-year-olds, 5-year-olds. Mature, so like they're old, like old ladies, or like mature, like big ladies. Whoa. Keep going. They were so old when it wasn't their turn, they had to wait on the nearby bench. Okay, so they're old ladies and they're not standing. My schema said they were standing, but they're not standing. They're waiting. So it's 3 old ladies. And 2 of them are sitting on a bench because they're so old. And 1 is hopscotching. And yes, see, that wasn't the picture that we had at first, right? It's your schema, and there's nothing wrong with it. Your background gets filled in, normal. But as you keep reading and you pick up a detail that's, whoa, didn't expect it, you have got to shift your thinking. And it often requires backing up and looking at some details. I read that slow enough that mature women caught me, and I could adjust my picture on the fly. Okay, let's have you try it. Okay, let's have you try it with this passage that I have here, and I'm going to zoom in and we'll just read line by line, okay? Okay, so the first thing that I just want us to look at is just the title, all right? Doughboy Obituary. All right, stop looking. Okay, so Doughboy Obituary. Okay, so obituary, what do I know? Well, somebody's died, last name must be Doughboy, and this is the write-up of their life. Got it. Okay, here I go. So now I read the first sentence. It is with great sadness I have to pass along the following. Please join me in remembering a great icon. Oh, okay. So this person must be famous, and whoever's writing this is sad and is passing it along. Okay, everybody must not have known this information. Okay, back to the passage. Veteran Pillsbury spokesperson, the Pillsbury Doughboy died yesterday of a severe yeast infection and complications from repeated pokes in the belly. Huh? Pokes in the belly? What? What are we talking about? Who are we talking about? We better go back and reread. Veteran Pillsbury spokesperson, the Pillsbury Doughboy died yesterday. Oh, they're talking about the little white guy on the commercials. That's the great icon. Died yesterday of a severe yeast infection. Yeast, oh brother, play on words. Yeast infection, complications from repeated pokes in the belly. Oh, because the person on the commercial always pushes in his belly. Oh, did you see how that happened? You see how this works? This idea of we're reading a little bit and we're having a thought. We're reading a little bit and we're having a thought. Okay. So you gotta keep going. All right. To pick up details to see if they match what you expected. But when they don't, you better adjust. That's what we do. We have these questions. We're looking for answers. And a lot of times as we read on, the answers confirm what we expected, or they're anticipated, or they seem reasonable. They don't catch us. But when you read on and you're like, whoa, you better adjust. Stop, question it, back up, reread, and get yourself back on track. This is what readers do. Look up here for a second. You guys, you cannot get the right answers. You can't understand what you're reading if you're not reading it accurately. So these two go hand in hand. We're collecting details. We're having thoughts. As we read on, the answer we think, it gets confirmed. Or as we're reading, we're questioning, we're having thoughts, we're getting answers, we're reading and we were wrong. We didn't expect that. We were off base. So adjust, back up, see what details you missed. Oh, I get it now. Now I'm on track, and you keep going. You can't keep barreling through the defender if you're not getting it. Okay, but remember, these questions during reading, they might also be predictions. So it might not just be collecting facts and information. It might be collecting details and you make a prediction to see if you're right. So let me jump down a few paragraphs in this same obituary and see if you can't anticipate a few things and have some thoughts that get confirmed, or we have to adjust. Okay, so I'm just going to read a little bit, all right? The graveside was piled high with flowers, all as longtime friend Aunt Jemima delivered the eulogy. All right, flowers, play on words. Aunt Jemima. Okay, well, that's another name, human name for a food icon. Got it. All right, describing Doughboy as a man who never knew how much he was needed. Oh, that's not how you spell needed. Well, not the needed everybody else would think. That's needed like you knead and squish the dough. Doughboy rose quickly in show business, but his later life was filled with many turnovers. Turnovers. This got to be like a parody. That turnover, that's another kind of pastry you use dough for. Okay, so now that you know we're reading a parody, let's see if you can't anticipate a few things. Let me read without showing you the screen and see if you can't put details together, predict an answer, and then we'll read on to see if you were right or if you need to adjust. Okay, so I'm not showing you the screen on purpose. Here we go. Here's your reading voice. Doughboy was buried in okay, so think of Pillsbury dough. If it was put into something, what do you put dough into? Think about it. A pan. What kind of pan? What do you do to the pan? Grease it. All right. Doughboy was buried in a lightly greased coffin. Well done. All right. Next sentence. Dozens of celebrities turned out. Okay. Wait. Okay. We had Aunt Jemima. So I want you to predict, what are some possible food icons, animated characters, that might be at this funeral? Because we had dozens of celebrities. Can you make some predictions? Think of cereal, pastries. Okay, look at your screen. Dozens of celebrities turned out, including Mrs. Butterworth and California Raisins, Hungry Jack, Betty Crocker, Hostess Twinkies, Captain Crunch, and many others. So, were you right, or were you needing to adjust? You brainstormed some that weren't listed. You didn't come up with any of those. Okay? If you're reading slow enough, then you can take it in. But often we get comfortable and we just start reading, and then boom, we didn't expect yeast infection and Doughboy and pokes in the belly. It caught us because we were reading so fast. So this is normal. Let's do one more. Let's do one more here. Okay, Doughboy is survived by his second wife. Okay, come on now. Doughboy married somebody, another dough. What are you thinking? Can you predict? Okay, let me ask you this question. They have 2 children. And the wife, she's pregnant. What might you say about that wife who's pregnant? Okay, look at your screen. Doughboy is survived by his second wife, Play-Doh. Look at that. They have 2 children and 1 in the oven. It ends with the funeral was held at 3:50 for about 20 minutes. What a hilarious obit. Great little parody there. All right, so just this idea, what we're learning to do in this lesson is that as we read and have questions and look for answers, we also have to self-monitor that those answers make sense. And sometimes they do. Most of the time, hopefully they do. But sometimes it's, whoa, didn't expect that. And so these questions of confusion require us to reread, see what details we missed, fix up our thinking before we continue reading. This is a normal situation for readers. Okay, if you were in Mrs. Smecken's class, here's what I would have you do next. I would have you take this next page. I've got 5 passages, and 4 of them here on the left. 4 of those, I want you to read it, and I want you to sketch what you see. All right, and my guess is you're going to start to sketch, and then as you keep reading, you're going to be like, whoa, and you're going to have to adjust your mental picture and then your physical picture. So you're just sketching, okay, for those 4. And then the one there on the far right, I want you to fill in the blank, okay? And we'll look at the answers to these in the next lesson, okay? But I just want you to go into them with thinking, collecting details, making inferences, and then adjust if necessary. All right, so 4 sketches and a fill in the blank. That's what you're doing if you're in Mrs. Smecken's class, but your teacher might have a better idea.